As students progress through school, they will encounter more and more in-class and standardized tests. By learning strategies for how to take true-false, multiple choice, and essay tests, these tests will become easier and easier for them. As students progress through school, they will encounter more and more in-class and standardized tests. By learning strategies for how to take true-false, multiple choice, and essay tests, these tests will become easier and easier for them. In our test-taking book, we teach students strategies for these different kinds of tests and give them ample practice with simulated tests applying these particular strategies. Let's take a look inside the book. Let's start with Section 1, which teaches strategies for true-false tests. There are 3 different strategies that are introduced in this section. Strategy 1 tells us to turn the statement into a question. If your answer is yes, then the test question is probably true. If you answer no, then your test question is probably false. Let's take a look at some practice exercises with this particular strategy. For exercise 1, students are asked to read different true-false statements and then turn each statement into a question. If the answer is yes, the question is most likely true. For instance, let's look at the example. An airplane can fly in the air. Let's convert that to a question. Can an airplane fly in the air? The answer is yes. Therefore, the answer is true. The next question, horses have legs. Let's turn it into a question. Do horses have legs? Yes. So in this case, the answer is true. For exercise 2, students are asked to convert the true-false statements into questions in their heads, rather than writing it down, and then answer the question. In this case, number 1, grocery stores sell fruit. In our heads, we think, do grocery stores sell fruit? Since the answer is yes, we circle true. Number 2, an avocado contains a seed in the center. Does an avocado contain a seed in the center? Since the answer is yes, we circle true. Now let's look at the next true-false strategy. This strategy tells us to learn true-false clue words to help us choose the correct answer. There are soft clue words that tells us that the answer is probably true, and there are hard clue words that tells us that the answer is probably false. Soft clue words include often, probably, sometimes, might, may, and frequently. Hard words include, but are not limited to, no, never, none, always, all, and every. Exercise 3 asks us to underline the clue word and then use that word to decide if the answer is true or false. Let's look at the example. Teachers frequently give homework. Here we underline the clue word frequently. Since frequently is a soft clue word, the answer is most likely true. Let's look at the next one. People often make mistakes. Let's underline often. Since often is a soft clue word, the answer here is probably true. For the next exercise as a challenge, the student is asked to come up with some true-false statements using this strategy and then give it to a friend to try to answer them. Section 1C goes into our third true-false strategy. It tells us to remember that the entire statement must be true in order for the answer to be true. For instance, you can eat pasta with a fork, but you cannot eat chicken with your fingers. Well, in this case, we know the first part is true, you can eat pasta with a fork, but the second part is false, since we can eat chicken with our fingers. Therefore, the entire statement is false. Exercise 4 gives us some true-false statements and asks us to decide if the entire statement is true, in which case the answer would be true, or if only part of the answer is true or none of the answer is true. In this case, it would be false. Popsicles are cold and ice cream is hot. Well, we know that popsicles are cold, but ice cream is not hot, so that one is false. Number 2, horses are big and tigers are always small. Well, we know that horses can be big, but tigers are not always small. Therefore, that answer is false. Then we have a true-false practice test that encompasses all of the different strategies for true-false tests that we've learned. Students answer the different problems and circle which strategy they used, 1, 2, or 3. For the next section, section 2, we move into multiple choice tests. There are 5 different strategies that we teach students for solving multiple choice questions. The first strategy tells students to eliminate oddballs or answers that are very different from the other choices. For example, blank is a summer month. A, November, B, January, C, July, or D, the beach. Well, we know that the beach is a complete oddball, so we can cross that one off and immediately have fewer choices to choose from. Exercise 1 gives students different multiple choice questions. They are asked to read the question and then cross off the one that's a complete oddball while answering the question. For instance, number 1, blank have 4 wheels. A, cars, B, bicycles, C, bananas, or D, airplanes. Well, we know that bananas is obviously the oddball, so we'll cross that one off. Section 2B goes into our second multiple choice strategy, which tells us to answer the question in our heads before looking at the choices. For example, a blank is used to open cans. Well, before even looking at the choices, we should think in our minds that the answer is probably can opener. Then when we find that answer, we'll know that that's the true one, most likely. Let's look at exercise 2. Blank is used to cool down drinks. Well, in our minds, we can think that the answer is probably going to be ice. So let's see if that one is there. Well, in this case, ice is choice D, so that would be our answer. Section 2C teaches us the next multiple choice strategy. It tells us to read every choice before selecting our answer. In this case, we have an example. The tool usually used to scoop ice cream is called an A, fork, B, ice cream scooper, C, pan, or D, large spoon. In this case, we know we can cross off fork and pan. Now we've narrowed it down to 2 choices. Is it ice cream scooper or is it large spoon? Here we know it's going to be ice cream scooper. Some students will impulsively select an answer before reading every choice, so it's important that they do in fact read all choices. Section 2D goes into our 4th multiple choice strategy. It tells us to underline key words while reading the question. Oftentimes, just one key word can throw off the entire answer. For instance, different key words like except, only, not, never, best, and cannot can completely change the question that's being asked. Let's look at an example. All of the following are types of fruit except A, apples, B, bananas, C, carrots, or D, oranges. It was very important that we notice that word except, or we might have a difficult time with this question. Exercise 4 gives students practice with this strategy. In Section 2E, students learn the last multiple choice strategy. We teach students that they must read the directions carefully and know whether they must mark one or more than one answer correct. Let's look at an example. Indicate all of the following cartoons. Based on this question, we know that we need to answer not just one, but as many choices that apply. A, The Simpsons, B, The Jetsons, C, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, or D, The Hillary Clinton Show. In this case, we would circle The Simpsons and The Jetsons. Again, it was important that we read that question to make sure we knew exactly what they were looking for. Section 3 moves into essay tests. Here we teach students how to write written responses to essay prompts that they are typically given. Generally speaking, students are given essay prompts which they have to answer, such as describe your favorite activity, compare and contrast living in the city versus living in the country, or discuss your idea of a utopian world. Within each prompt, there is typically a word called a directive. Directives explain how to answer the prompt. Some examples of directives include examine, analyze, compare, contrast, or compare and contrast. As a first step, the student should always underline the directive and then rewrite the prompt in their own words to make sure that they're going to answer the question properly. Then, it's important that they first brainstorm, then write, and then self-check their essays. Even if they're on time constraints, it's important that they spend at least a few minutes brainstorming and a few minutes self-checking. In the book, students are given samples of what a well-written brainstorm web might look like. They're also given 5 different options for how to begin writing, as well as a specific strategy for how to self-check their work called CTOPS, which stands for capitalization, tense, organization, punctuation, and spelling. In the rest of the book, students are given ample practice with different prompts where they're expected to brainstorm, write, and self-check different essays. Again, the more students practice the strategies in this book, the easier and more automatic they will become, and the better they will begin to perform on different kinds of tests.